When you think of World War II aviation, what comes to mind? Spitfires dueling Messerschmitts over Britain, Mustangs escorting bombers to Berlin, or maybe Zeros dominating the Pacific skies. These are the iconic images, the piston engine legends that defined an era. But lurking in the shadows, a revolution was brewing. A new kind of power, a new kind of speed, was about to change aerial warfare forever. This is the story of the jet age, born in the crucible of the deadliest conflict in human history. Today, we were going to cover every single jet aircraft that was built and flown during the Second World War. Let's start where it all began, Germany. The Germans were pioneers, light years ahead of the Allies in jet technology. Their first success was the Heinkel He 178 on August 27, 1939. Just days before the invasion of Poland, this unassuming little plane made the world's first flight powered purely by a turbojet engine. It was a proof of concept, never intended for combat, and only one was ever built. But it proved that jet flight was not just a dream. Following this, Heinkel developed a He 280. This was the world's first jet fighter. With a sleek twin-engine design and a tricycle landing gear, it looked incredibly futuristic. It first flew in 1941 and even had an ejection seat. 9 prototypes were built, and in a mock dogfight, it easily outran Germany's best piston-engine fighter, the WWII. So why didn't it enter service? Politics, production difficulties, and the fact that its Heinkel engines were unreliable. The He 280 was a tantalizing glimpse of the future, but it remained a prototype. The jet that did make history was the Messerschmitt Me 262, nicknamed the Schwalbe or Swallow. This was the world's first operational jet fighter. With its swept-back wings and powerful Junkers Jumo 004 engines, it was a weapon that could have changed the course of the air war. It was over 100 miles per hour faster than any Allied fighter. When it appeared in the skies in mid-1944, Allied pilots were shocked. P-51 Mustangs and Spitfires, the kings of the sky, simply couldn't catch it. And Me-262 pilots could dictate the terms of every engagement, diving on bomber formations, unleashing a volley of cannon fire, and then climbing away with untouchable speed. Over 1,400 Me-262s were built, but its impact was limited. The engines had a very short lifespan, sometimes lasting only 10 hours. They were vulnerable during takeoff and landing, and Allied pilots learned to loiter over their airfields to pick them off. Furthermore, fuel shortages and constant bombing of factories hampered production. While a revolutionary aircraft, it arrived too late and in too few numbers to stop the Allied tide. But the Me 262 wasn't Germany's only operational jet. There was also the Arado Ar 234 Blitz, or Lightning. This was the world's first operational jet bomber and reconnaissance aircraft. Initially designed with a bizarre tricycle gear that was jettisoned after takeoff and landed on a skid, the production versions had conventional landing gear. With its slender fuselage and engines slung under the wings, it was even faster than the Me 262. It was virtually immune to interception. Flying reconnaissance missions over Britain and the Allied beachheads in Normandy, the Blitz provided valuable intelligence. A bomber version was also used in the final months of the war, famously targeting the Ludendorff Bridge at Remagen. Around 214 were built. Germany's jet program was full of wild and wonderful designs. Take the Heinkel He 162 Volksjäger, or People's Fighter. This was a desperate, last-ditch effort. Made primarily of wood to save strategic materials, it was designed to be flown by pilots with minimal training. It featured a single jet engine mounted on top of the fuselage. It was fast but tricky to fly, and many were lost in accidents. Though over 300 were built and it saw limited service right at the war's end, it was a classic case of too little, too late. Then there was the Bacumba 349 Natter, a truly bizarre machine. It was less of an aircraft and more of a manned surface-to-air missile. Designed for point defense, it was launched vertically from a rail. The pilot's job was to aim it at a bomber formation, fire a salvo of unguided rockets from its nose, and then bail out while the rear part of the plane with the engine parachuted back to Earth for reuse. It was a suicide mission in all but name. Only a handful were built, and its only manned test flight ended in tragedy, killing the pilot. It was a terrifying symbol of Germany's desperation. Now, let's cross the channel to Great Britain. While Germany focused on combat jets, the British, led by the brilliant Frank Whittle, were also hard at work. Their first jet was the Gloster E-2839. It made its maiden flight in May 1941, about 20 months after Germany's He 178. Like its German counterpart, it was purely a research aircraft, a flying testbed for Whittle's new engine. Only 2 were ever built, but its successful flights gave the Allies the confidence to pursue their own jet fighter. That fighter was the Gloster Meteor. This was the Allies' first and only operational jet to see service in the war. It was a twin-engine, straight-winged fighter that looked much more conventional than the Me 262. It was not as fast as the German jet, but its Rolls-Royce engines were far more reliable. The Meteor entered service with the Royal Air Force in July 1944. To avoid one falling into enemy hands, they were initially forbidden from flying over German-held territory. Instead, their first job was hunting V-1 flying bombs over southern England, a task at which they excelled. By the war's end, they were flying sweeps over Germany, destroying enemy aircraft on the ground. Around 200 were delivered before V-Day, marking a crucial first step for the Allies in the jet age. What about the United States? America's jet program got a kickstart when a Whittle engine and the plans for the Gloster Meteor were secretly flown across the Atlantic in 1941. Bell Aircraft was tasked with building an airframe for the American-built version of the engine. The result was the Bell P-59 Air Comet. It first flew in October 1942, becoming America's first jet aircraft. However, its performance was disappointing. It was barely faster than the top piston-engine fighters of the day like the P-51 Mustang, and it had numerous design flaws. About 66 were built, but they were used only for training and evaluation. The P-59 never saw combat. Its main contribution was giving American pilots and ground crews their first taste of handling a jet. The first truly viable American jet fighter was the Lockheed P-80 Shooting Star, developed in incredible secrecy and at breakneck speed. The prototype was designed and built in just 143 days. It first flew in January 1944. The P-80 was a sleek, single-engine fighter that was much faster. Meanwhile, what was happening in the Pacific? Japan was also trying to develop jets, largely with technical data supplied by their German allies. Their first jet-powered aircraft was the Nakajima Kikka, which translates to orange blossom. It looked strikingly similar to the Me 262, but was smaller. It made its first and only flight on August 7, 1945, the day after the atomic bomb was dropped on Hiroshima. That flight lasted about 20 minutes before a takeoff accident on its second attempt damaged the aircraft beyond immediate repair. The war ended before it could be fixed. Only 2 prototypes were ever completed. Japan also developed a rocket-powered aircraft, similar in concept to Germany's Natter, but far more infamous, the Yokosuka MXY-7 Oka, or Cherry Blossom. This was a purpose-built kamikaze weapon. It was a human-guided missile packed with explosives, carried to the target area by a bomber, and then released. The pilot would guide it to an enemy ship at incredible speed. The Oka was a terrifying weapon, responsible for sinking or damaging several U.S. Navy vessels. While technically rocket-powered, not jet-powered, it's often included in discussions of this era's advanced aircraft. It represents a horrifying fusion of new technology and desperate tactics. Finally, we have to mention the Soviet Union. While they ended the war with a powerful piston-engine air force, their jet program was lagging. They did experiment with rocket-powered interceptors like the Berezhniki-Sayev BI-1, which first flew in 1942. However, it was plagued by instability and dangerous handling characteristics. And after a fatal crash, the project was cancelled. The Soviets wouldn't field a truly successful jet fighter until after the war, when they famously reverse-engineered captured German and British engine technology to create the legendary MiG-15. So there you have it. From the pioneering He-178 to the deadly Ma-262 and the Allied response with the Gloucester Meteor and P-80 Shooting Star, these aircraft were the vanguard of a new age. They were built and flown in the final, frantic moments of a global conflict, offering a stunning preview of the future of air power. They may not have changed the final outcome of World War II, but they certainly changed the world. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this deep dive into aviation history, be sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell so you don't miss our next video. Let us know in the comments which of these early jets you find the most fascinating. See you next time.